Hello, friends, and welcome to a Friday edition of Your Daily Detroit, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. It is Friday, February 18th, 2022. I'm Jer Stays, and I am buried under some snow.
And I'm Devon O'Reilly, and I am digging out myself, Jer. That was a wallop we took with the snow.
I drove through it yesterday. We were doing something at the Detroit City Fieldhouse, and I cut across town, and let me tell you, it was a harrowing drive.
And it looks like, we've survived. The roads look okay, and we've got some warm weather to look forward to. I know we got a couple topics today that are going to kind of look ahead to spring, and so that's what I'm doing, Jer. I'm looking ahead.
I'm looking ahead as well, but as long as we have the snow, I figured I would make it the central component of my cocktail for the week.
That's you sound quite mad by saying that.
Well, I do like a good snow cocktail, and let me tell you why. I fell in love with the snow cone and like jazzing that up when I went to New Orleans. There's an amazing snow cone shop in the 9th Ward that I went to that was just it was so delicious. And so it's kind of given me this idea that what can we work with, because I don't have one of those slushy machines. I'm not fancy, Devon.
Yeah, but I think there's a difference between like distilled cubed ice and straight up outdoor snow. I'm really not sure how clean snow is, but I'm going to let you go with this.
Okay, so normally what I do when I'm going to prep for this is I set up like a plastic tub and let the snow in the tub so that it's completely sequestered. Like I'll set it on the table because yes, I've done this before, and no, I've had no medical professional sign off on this. Your risk is on your own. I'm not officially recommending you do this. I'm just saying that I did it myself. This is a grape and gin number.
Interesting.
And so you kind of do it a simple syrup. And I would say go with the Concord grape juice. You want that nice purpley color, a little bit of gin, and you mix that up. Now you take the snow, you kind of get like an ice scooper or like a big scoop, and then you drop it into your glass, whether your rocks glass or your highball, and then you pour that very sweet. You want this to be on the sweeter side because this is going to feel like a little bit of summer in winter. And you could either drink it if you pour more in, or you could go ahead and take a spoon and just kind of go each thing and kind of have a snow cocktail.
This sounds pretty wild, Jer. I don't know if this is for me. I got to be honest.
Unofficially, I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice.
I think Dr. Paul might need to weigh in on this, Jer. I don't know. Because I feel like you'd look at me like I'm crazy if I come on in April and tell you about some rainwater cocktail that I've invented.
What do you have, sir?
Well, I've got my hands on some of the paczki vodka from Detroit City Distillery.
Very much talked about, sold out very quickly. It's one of the reasons we really didn't preview it is because I hear it from listeners. If we preview something and they can't buy it, they get rather upset.
I know. You're going to have to maybe find a friend or find somebody who got their hands on this because it is definitely sold out. Lucky enough, I'm downtown, quite a bit in that area. So I actually just walked in looking to see if they had any of their varieties of beverage that they're offering this year, their seasonal varieties. And they happen to have a few bottles of the paczki vodka left. So I said, give me that. I've had a chance to crack the bottle and taste it a little bit. It's really good.
Well, I will say this. Listener Ben, who our listeners are always looking for a good cocktail tip. Listener Ben said that he picked up his bottle and it was delicious straight up, but was wondering if there are any inside secrets on how to use it. Maybe a mixer. Any ideas, Devon?
Absolutely. This is something where my wife thought it was crazy. I first poured it and I had, I took a few sips of it, just, neat vodka. That's rough. You have to really be a vodka drinker to go with a neat, vodka, no matter what the flavor is.
You could mix it with snow.
Yes, it's a very Russian drink there. No, so this definitely needs some mixers. And actually, I've got some pro tips on mixers because on my way out of Detroit City Distillery, I saw my buddy Mike Forsyth, one of the owners, and one of the bartenders who was there. And I just basically asked him, I was like, Mike, what's up? Like, what am I supposed to do with this vodka? What do I mix it with? He's like, Devon, I got something for you. You take your paczki vodka, you take 1.5 ounces to 2 ounces of that. You take 1.5 ounces of pomegranate juice. Get the good pomegranate juice. You only need about 1.5 ounces of it. And then top with club soda or tonic. really good. It brings
Ooh.
out that fruity flavor. It brings out the fruit filling flavor that's already in the vodka a little bit, but really kind of makes it gives it some sweetness and some flavor there.
When you're trying it straight up, how much of the sweet notes are in there?
You know what, Jer? Here's what I would say, because I know our listeners have dabbled their way around some different beverages. So it's definitely you taste the fruit more than you do in just any regular vodka, but it's not as much as like if you were drinking like a Smirnoff cherry or Smirnoff raspberry. That has a very artificial sweet flavor to it, whereas this is a more natural fruit flavor, obviously because they throw the punchkis right into the vodka while they're distilling it. So it's a more natural flavor, but it's not as strong. It's not as strong as like a flavored vodka.
Okay.
Now I've got one more too, because the bartender who was there also let me know that you can use this punchki vodka in a White Russian, and it does really well. And I tried that as well. So basically, just like you'd make a White Russian with your vodka, with your Kahlua, and a little bit of half and half over the top of it, mix that up, and you have, again, you think about like the coffee, the breadiness of the punchki flavor, the raspberry, that all kind of goes together really well.
All right, let's get to some news. There is a good piece of information to share in regards to the Great Lakes. There's $1 billion in federal money for the Great Lakes Basin, and it will directly be spent on the Detroit River, the Clinton River, and Rouge River, among other places in other states. But this money is going to move a lot of things forward. It will significantly speed up work that the EPA is doing for areas of concern, meaning that they've suffered environmental damage. Included in this, the Clinton River would have their physical work done by 2026, and the Detroit and Rouge Rivers by 2030. I know that's a few years away, but that's a significant speed up of the timeline. There are more than 15 projects on the Rouge River alone, including one in Dearborn that would take out a 4-mile concrete channel built in the 70s for Fairlane Mall. The idea is to restore more of the natural barriers, and that might help reduce flooding as well. It will also increase wildlife, things like that, because when you have a, cemented-in conduit, that's just not going to be very conducive for your wetlands. The money is to be released over the course of 5 years. This is a huge investment. Devon, I've read my history, and I know there was a time when the Rouge River caught fire, and
Yes.
there has been some real progress since then. It's something where, people say Detroit was better back in the day. I mean, the river on fire isn't my definition of better, and it gives you an idea of just how much progress we've made in our lifetimes.
Absolutely, Jer. I mean, I'm keenly aware of the Rouge River. I grew up around it. I actually did some of the Friends of the Rouge, which was the organization that really helped clean it up in the 80s and 90s. I've been out in the Rouge helping clean up. It's a very shallow river in some places, so you can literally stand in the river and clean it, pick stuff out of it. So I've actually done some conservation stuff with the Friends of the Rouge and the Rouge River. It's great to see. I mean, it's come a long way already, and I think that's kind of the important part of like these projects are really going to take it to the next level in terms of cleanliness. It's already decidedly much more clean than before, when it was just literally, basically a sludge and pollution river. And we have to point out, Jerry, because of where the Rouge is, and I'm speaking specifically kind of to the Dearborn branch, because that's the one I know well, but, that flows into the Rouge and flows right into Zug Island. So, I mean, this area of the Rouge, closer to the Detroit River, was dredged by Henry Ford to get the ships in to haul, like, we're talking like the dirtiest of dirty materials from making steel and auto parts and things like that, and rubber. I mean, the filthiest of filth was transported through this river in the early part of the 20th century, and it just got wrecked, just absolutely wrecked. So it had a long way to come, but it's doing a lot better. I was kayaking on the Rouge in the summer, so it's come a long way, and these projects are going to take it to the next level, and I'm really looking forward to it.
I can't help but remember our discussions about some development happening on that Fairlane site, a real opportunity for Dearborn, and I feel like this could only be an enhancement, not just there, but all along the way.
Yeah, I really like the idea of helping to restore the natural borders. If listeners are thinking, if they know that area by Fairlane Mall, when I read this, I immediately knew what they were talking about. You drive on Michigan Avenue and you kind of go over the Rouge, and if you kind of look to your left and look to your right. Well, you look to your left, depending on when you're driving, but there's these concrete barriers that run all along the river for seemingly miles. And it looks very artificial. It gets overgrown in the spring and summer months. So I'm going to be glad to see those go.
So my inbox blew up with requests for thoughts on this next story in Eastern Market. There will be a 25,000 square foot food hall next to Roma Cafe. It'll be called Mosaic. That spot on Rio Pel has been empty for a real long time. I want to say decades. And it is a former Detroit Water and Sewerage building. Also, a 4,000 square foot rooftop bar will be part of the project. In total, we're talking $33 million of investment. The project will start this year and the food hall should open next year. If you want an idea what this might look like, the Chattahoochee Food Hall in Atlanta is another project the consultant designing this, Robert Montway, did. And I just love saying Chattahoochee. I'll put that on the record. The owners are Detroit-based Ventra and a group out of Calgary. I think this could be a hit. I've seen some food halls do well, some not do well. As somebody who knows the Detroit Shipping Company, that has been a hit. And I think if it's programmed well, everyone knows where Eastern Market is. I think destinations matter in Metro Detroit because we don't really walk places. Like if you're going to get in the car anyway, you need to go somewhere that really draws you in.
That is true, Jer. But, I'm a little more skeptical on this just because I want to see how this plays out and how they're going to put this together, because I think that's really the important part, what the business model is. You mentioned Detroit Shipping Co., which does a great job, fantastic job. They've created this partnership with the pedal pubs. So you have pedal pubs going to and fro. Also, on the other side of the coin, though, is Fort Street Galley that opened up downtown. And I would argue plenty of people know where downtown is and it normally should have a lot of traffic. But Fort Street Galley was a huge, huge flop. And they just could never get that place to any kind of critical mass of patrons there. And it just failed. It went belly up. And so I look at this in Eastern Market and I say, I don't know if there's that much daily traffic to sustain the food hall. I think it depends if they are planning on if they're like the concept that's going to be open all week into the weekend, or if they're just going to be kind of a, Thursday through Sunday destination spot. I think that has a better chance of thriving. But if they're thinking that they're going to be a consistent revenue generator throughout the week, I'd be very skeptical of that.
I would push back on the downtown location. This is stupid, but parking matters. And people don't know garages unless they work downtown. Garages downtown are expensive. I did an interview with somebody from the city of Royal Oak that's going to air. And one of the reasons I did it is listeners were requested, hey, highlight the fact that garages are only 75 cents an hour in downtown Royal Oak. Why aren't they that way in downtown Detroit? And honestly, that's a really, really valid question if you want foot traffic.
That's a good point. And a lot of the parking in downtown Detroit is a lot of it is privately owned, those street lots, surface lots. And so the prices are kind of set, in some cases to gouge. But I certainly wish them the best. I'll certainly be there. Rooftop Bar has my name written all over it. So I'm looking forward to checking them out when they open up.
Thumbs up, thumbs down, dailydetroit@gmail.com. Would love to hear what you think. Great Lakes employees at their Midtown location went on strike Wednesday. The popular coffee shop on Woodward has been in the news over a series of workplace issues. It's been temporarily closed, I think, for a few weeks now. The Great Lakes employees have enlisted hospitality union Unite Here Local 24 to join the strike and give support. Employees say they want a safer work environment, better COVID protocols, better equipment, and better pay, including a $15 an hour starting wage. Great Lakes remains closed, and pickets appeared at their Royal Oak location. If you don't know, Great Lakes has expanded in recent years. They have little coffee stands in different places, like they have one in the TCF Center. They have one in the Rivertown Mire. They have them in all kinds of different little places. They've even gone as far as Florida, Devon. Am I right?
Yeah, Key West. I haven't gotten a chance to check it out, but there's a Key West Great Lakes coffee.
There's no budget for that, sir.
No, we can't do a remote show from Key West. God, right about now, I would love that. But no, Jared, there's a lot to say here. There's a lot to unpack, as they say. And I'll kind of start by just on the face value and looking at it for what it is. And I'll preface this by saying, if you listen to the show, I basically lived across the street from Great Lakes Coffee for a number of years. And there was a time where I literally was at Great Lakes coffee every single day. So I want to preface it by saying I speak with a little bit of authority on Great Lakes and how they've been, how they've been run and how they've been doing the past few years. But, this to me, you see it, and it's clearly not just the workers, because on a given day, there's only, 3 or 4 people working at Great Lakes. If you look at the pictures from this, there's dozens of people outside striking. So the fact that they enlisted the local 24, very helpful, very, very helpful. And, reading through kind of the demands, they're pretty reasonable. I mean, again, this is just subjective, but, talking about a safer work environment, which is, I don't know exactly what that means yet. Better equipment, better pay, $15 an hour starting wage, $15 an hour seems to be the kind of prevailing thing here. But I do have to say, $15 an hour, but this is also, a lot of this is tip based. You know what I mean? As a barista, you rely on tips as well. So would this be $15 an hour plus any tips, or, getting them to $15 an hour? That's a big question I have. And then, better COVID protocols, which I totally agree with. They did a really good job during COVID of kind of having a single file line, a spaced out line of people, to get your coffee. Everybody had masks. There was very good protocols. I have not been recently, to be honest, but I also know that we're also opening up things now. So that's where I'm also thinking, I'm looking at the COVID protocols demand, and I'm saying, well, how do we rectify that as we're also getting to like not needing to wear masks and, things like that?
Well, the employees had some specific demands around a lack of reporting by the management of COVID cases within the staff.
Yes.
And so that is a specific issue. I think it's more of an indication of care of workers for the future. But yeah, it's something where, and this happened at the Whole Foods and some other places where, a lot of places have started running whether or not someone has a COVID case in there, right? They've made that decision. Other places shut everything down and say, all right, we're going to be off for a day. It's so, there is no guideline. So it's all over the place.
I definitely get why they would want better protocols for workers and worker safety around COVID. Totally understand that. I don't think that should be too big of a demand to meet, though. So if that's one of the big sticking points, it shouldn't be hard to develop some kind of a thing for kind of screening workers and a communication system for when someone tests positive. I totally get that. But some of the other stuff I do kind of I am a little questionable. The better equipment you're asking, then does that mean you're asking the company to invest in more equipment, put in more capital? The wage thing kind of strikes me, and it could be, if it's $15 an hour plus tips, I don't know. That's a lot. And you have to think about those slim margins that these coffee shops operate under. And now Great Lakes does have multiple locations. So there's certainly not some just, mom and pop coffee shop. But as we kind of zoom the lens out here and you look at the bigger picture of this, not every coffee shop can afford to pay $15 an hour. It's just purely, it cannot. It will go out of business unless you start charging $5 for a cup of coffee. And I don't think everybody is on board with that.
So philosophically, it comes down to the idea that should they be in business if they can't pay $15 an hour? And I don't have that answer, but I'm pushing back on that. And I also will push back on the idea that I don't think this is about Great Lakes per se. Like, yes, this is the example case, but I believe that this is part of a coordinated national push. The press release that I got about this is from someone who's from here, but out of DC. You've got politicians lining up for photo ops. Like, I believe the demands, I believe the workers are honest in their demands, but I also think that this is a part of a national greater conversation about service jobs and should they be unionized and should they be living wages? And that's a debate that we're in the middle of having in this country. And I would say that extra support shows that this isn't just a ragtag group of baristas. If they were just 4 or 5 baristas, I think that they wouldn't have a shot. I think with the support of a national union, that gives them a lot of leverage. And unionization in coffee shops, it's gaining steam. There is a Starbucks in Clinton Township that signed union cards. There are 3 other Starbucks in Michigan that have unionization drives or are somewhere along the process. I don't remember exactly where. And, Starbucks has more locations than McDonald's now. So they're really the target. Remember when there was the $15 marches in front of McDonald's? Now it's Starbucks.
Well, but Starbucks can afford to meet those demands in a lot of cases, and some of these smaller coffee shops simply cannot afford to meet that demand. And I would say, and to your point about the philosophical question, I'd also pose, if the coffee shop can find other people to do the jobs, I'm sorry, and I don't want to sound crass, but these aren't skilled labor positions. And so when it comes to that, Great Lakes can say we can easily find other people to do what you do, to do your job, and they'll do it for what we're paying. And so it comes to the point of, if you can find the labor elsewhere, people who are happy to work, happy for the job, do you just take that route and say, we don't really need you. We don't feel like you have enough leverage to say that, your skill is something unique to this position that we can't go find elsewhere.
I feel like there would be a lot of third wave and specialty coffee people who would disagree with you strongly that it's an unskilled position. But I mean, that's kind of how capitalism works, right? And I think if capitalism plays out and this does happen, and I can't say if it will or won't, I would expect the prices of all those things to go up, because that's where we're at. Like, I don't, as much as I have my own personal politics, I don't believe anything about transitory inflation at this point when it comes to goods that people directly pay for. Companies don't like to charge less for things.
Yeah, you're right. And so when we look ahead to how this ends, one of the things we talked about at the beginning was how big Great Lakes has become and how much it's growing. This flagship store, I don't even think really needs to be a revenue generator for them. So at the end of the day, if this becomes too much of a hassle, too big of a headache, I could see them just walking away from it. So we have news coming out of Ferndale, the venerable fly trap that many patrons know. A lot of people love that place for brunch, for food. Really, really well-known, long-standing place in Ferndale. It has been sold to the owner of Bobcat Bonnie's, Matt Buscard. It's important to note, though, that although Bobcat Bonnie's has been kind of expanding its footprint and putting locations in other areas, including Wyandotte, this is not going to become a Bobcat Bonnie's. And Matt was very intentional about saying that this is going to stay the fly trap, and he's going to try and stay very true to what guests have come to expect in terms of the type of food and the quality of food from the fly trap. So this isn't kind of a Bobcat Bonnie's takeover. This is kind of Matt adding to his portfolio, which is, becoming quite impressive.
I feel like this could give him another brand to play with, something to expand his horizons, do something different. I don't know if that's the case. That's just my off the hip, knowing what he does well, and that's scaling things up. I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen here. Before we let people go for the weekend, there are things to look forward to. It may not seem like it after our freeze, thaw, freeze, but when I smelled that spring air, I felt like I smelled spring air for an hour late at night the other day when we had that 50 degrees in the middle of the night, which is so weird. But I was up and I was I'm going to enjoy this. I took my senior dog outside and we just took it in, and I knew that spring was coming. The other thing is that mask mandates are lifting. I understand the concerns of people who are immunocompromised and with young children. I know that things aren't done yet for them, and other people have concerns. But I think when I talk to people, even among some of my most liberal friends, most cautious friends, they're done and they've decided that they're done. And so we're heading into this world.
Well, I guess you can count me as one of those people, Jer. I think the time has come to move on in a sense. I know we can say COVID's not done with us, sure, but it's going to have to be for a little while, and it's as done as it's going to be in some cases. If you're protected, you're boosted, you're whatever you want to say for level of protection, the cases have been plummeting over the past few weeks. So I think we're at this inflection point where people are looking ahead to spring coming around the corner. For myself, St. Patrick's Day, opening days coming up soon. I'm so excited for all that March Madness. I'm excited for that. And I'm excited for the first time in 2.5 years, 3 years, to maybe be able to do that outside and do that in a bar, or celebrate that with other people indoors or outdoors. So the time has come for that. Professionally, my job takes me to a lot of in-person events usually, and I love that, the in-person networking, doing coffee and happy hour meetings, and I'm starting to put more of those on the calendar now. And then personally, exploring bars and restaurants again. I mean, that's my lifeblood. Going to the dive bars that you and I always talk about, getting together at Jer for a drink. That's the type of stuff I'm really looking forward to, and I'm hoping we can get together at a dive bar very, very soon.
I have a pandemic pup, so I rescued a dog just a couple of weeks before the pandemic hit, and she is super sociable and she loves people. And in the early part of that pandemic, it got to where like she would just kind of sing for people on porches because she just loves people so much. And I would just have to like let the leash go long so she could like go get some love and then come back. I know that, this is a great thing for her because she wants to be around people and she just likes people. She's never been to the patio or restaurant or something like that. She's been to the dog park. And you know what else I really miss? I miss covering stories in person as much. There's nothing like an in-person conversation. And that goes to my last point, which is the studio. There is nothing like an alive podcast studio that has all kinds of interesting characters coming through it. It is a passion. And, you don't do this for the money. You do this for the experiences. You do this and you try your best to make your bills. This isn't something you get rich on right now, and those experiences, those interactions, those abilities to bring people together. I mean, there's just something really special about that. And I can't wait to do more of that.
Well said, Jer. I completely agree. I mean, there's something, I know that, they talk about how the sun and vitamin D, it, naturally can like boost your mood and improve your mood and things like that. And it kind of gives you sustenance in a way. For people like you and me, I mean, again, like you said, Jared, not everybody is as, social or, as, outwardly social as us necessarily. But for people like you and me, like that's just going to just lift our spirits so much to be able to just hang out with people again like that. I know it is. And that's why I know we're both excited about that. Let me ask you this. Do you have a patio in mind for where you're going to take her?
Ooh, I've got to go through and figure out which are the pupper patios post-pandemic.
That is very true, Jer. I'll throw one out for, I know we mentioned them before, but 8 Degrees Play-Doh is very dog friendly. You can bring your dog inside, matter of fact.
Oh, that's right, because they don't do food. They just do booze.
They have tables and chairs set up along cast, so you can bring your dog inside, you can bring your dog outside. That's definitely somewhere where dogs are always welcome.
I want to know where you're at. What are you thinking? dailydetroit@gmail.com. All right, we are done for today. Thank you to all those behind the scenes that make this work. Cheyenne Oserini, Randy Walker, Fletcher Sharp, all of our supporters on Patreon and buymeacoffee.com/dailydetroit. And Devon, good to chat with you.
Great to talk to you, Jer. I hope this is the last snow-covered podcast that we do for 2022.
I do too. And if you are stuck inside, consider stopping by Apple Podcasts or Spotify and dropping a 5-star rating. It would really help people find the show. With that, I'm Jer Stays.
I'm Devon O'Reilly.
Take care of each other, and we'll see you around Detroit.